going on, all you wonderful A-plussers out there? It is I, Stuart, here, once again with another video. This time, I'm going to be talking about the trailer for both Gotham Knights and Superman and Lois. That's right, we got not just one trailer for both of these shows that are going to be coming up, but we got two of them. That's right, two trailers for each of them, kind of. Well, really, it was more like we got two teasers for both shows, and then a secondary promotion for both shows that was really just like kind of an intersplice between both of them. And I was like kind of wondering to myself how I should approach reviewing these trailers, since there was, technically a total, I guess you could say, of like 3 teasers altogether. And I decided like I'm just gonna kind of break them all down as if they were just like 2 separate teasers instead of doing it as 3 teasers. So in other words, I'm just gonna be taking all the footage that was specifically related to Gotham Knights and putting it into the Gotham Knights section of this trailer review, and then all the Superman or Lois, clips from that, double feature promo, and then putting that into the Superman and Lois side of this video, if that makes sense. I don't know. It'll make more sense as this video goes along. So sorry for the confusion, but that being said, I will probably kind of skim through a lot of the Gotham Knights stuff because, like I think I've kind of mentioned before, I'm not quite as interested in Gotham Knights as I am, of course, Superman and Lois Season 3, just because, just everything I've seen so far from Gotham Knights, and I'll try to elaborate a little bit more as I go through a little bit of the trailer for this. I'm just not as big of a fan of what they're trying to go for with this, mostly because it's really hard to tell what exactly it is that they're kind of going for and what kind of like target audience they really have, because it almost feels a bit like too all over the place, and not in like a sense of what's going on in the show, just all over the place in sense of like what kind of tone, what kind of show they're really going for. And again, I'll try to elaborate as much as I can, but when it comes to the Superman and Lois side of things, I think that everything that we've seen so far, not only from the trailer, but everything we've heard like going into this next season, definitely gets me really excited. One thing has me a little bit worried, but I'll get to that when we I'll talk about that one thing that worries me when we get there. But that all being said, let's start with Gotham Knights and talk about this trailer. So the first shot that kind of stood out to me, of course, was one of the opening shots that we get. I'm just going to take away this little border image right here, just so you can see it a little more clearly. But, just the kind of the close-up of the gun, of course, it very much reminds me of Batman's origins of losing his parents. So it kind of it kind of makes you wonder if we're going to get like an origin story for Batman within this, like maybe the same flashback that we've seen like a million times with Joe Chill killing his parents, or if this is going to be like a flashback of Turner Hayes' backstory of how he lost his parents, and a possible explanation as to why Batman decided to adopt him. Like maybe Batman noticed how similar their origin story was, like they both lost their parents the same way, and maybe that's what made Batman kind of feel bad for him and want to take him in. Really hard to say, but regardless, this was a kind of cool like shot, for a brief moment right here, and it could mean several things, and I really hope it doesn't just end up being just kind of a random scene. Like I do hope there's like kind of a cool purpose to this moment. The other thing that really stuck out to me was the look of Gotham City overall. If there's one thing I can really praise everything I've seen from the promos of the show, is that I feel like they really got the look of Gotham like really I think they kind of nailed it. Definitely gives me vibes of Batman the Animated Series, which I absolutely love. And unfortunately, I think this is where my compliments for the show kind of ends, because after this we get our first look at Harvey Dent in the teaser. Of course, obviously we saw him in the original trailer that released for the I believe it was back then when they released it, they only had footage of the first episode, but here we get a little bit more of him interrogating the main characters, basically kind of pointing out how each of them had a motive to kill Batman in one way or another, and how each of them, just is a suspect that would make sense. We don't really know whether or not Harvey Dent in the show is meant to be a good guy or a bad guy. They've done a good job of just kind of like keeping that a little bit hush hush, because with a character like Harvey Dent, it really could go both ways, because in the comic books, Harvey Dent himself wasn't necessarily a villain. It was really just kind of like that other personality that he had, the Two-Face personality inside him that was the villain of the show. And so I am very curious of what direction they're going to take with his character in this show, and how they kind of play into that, going forward. We also see Batman's dead body in this, and or should I say Bruce Wayne, or a little bit, Bruce Wayne slash Batman's dead body. Now, there is a lot of controversy around the quote unquote Batman costume in this, as it's just a guy in a suit wearing a mask. But I think there's like kind of a lot of question as to whether or not this is actually the Batman costume, or if he just happened to, be out as Bruce Wayne and then someone shot him and then just for some reason put the Batman mask on him, like, leaving its body dead, maybe as a way to like show the world that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Hard to say, but regardless, we know that this whole show kind of revolves around the murder of Bruce Wayne. And as for, if this ends up being the costume, then what I think the reason behind it is because likely, just kind of knowing how DC is with a lot of their properties, they may have had, like, it might be a licensing issue where it's like they had the rights to use like elements of the Batman comic books, but they didn't have like the rights to actually use anything that, was specifically related to Batman. Hence why, his adopted son isn't like any of the Robins that we've known before. It's a completely original character. But speaking of original characters, even though like most of the characters we get in the show are from the comic books, they're kind of just like the slightly like lesser known characters from the world of Gotham, I guess you could say. But one character who a lot of I forgot his name, something Miller. But the guy who wrote the Dark Knight Returns, anyone who's like a big fan of the Dark Knight Returns will be really excited to see that Carrie Kelly is actually in this. And there is a little, like, again, kind of going back to the whole licensing thing of the show. I think for me, there was like a lot of questions on whether or not she was actually going to be called Robin in this, or whether or not that was just a nickname that Batman gave to her, but it wasn't like actually her superhero name. But here she does officially call herself Robin now. Again, a licensing thing probably, as there's not really anything to really like identify her as Robin. Like, if she didn't really call herself Robin, I don't think anyone would have guessed that she was supposed to be Robin in any way, because again, the costume just isn't really a Robin costume at all. Like, I mean, yeah, she did have goggles in the Dark Knight Returns comic book, but that's about as far as the similarities kind of go. But we do get her in the show, and then I don't know why I took this image twice, but another thing that kind of I thought was really cool was we do get this one costume, and I assume he's supposed to be kind of like our main suspect. And I don't mean like the main suspect of the GCPD. I mean like the main suspect of us as the audience watching the show, of who it might be that did kill Bruce Wayne, because this guy does appear to be an assassin. But of course, when it comes to these type of shows with a murder mystery involved, it's never as simple as it seems. So more than likely, he probably will be a character that actually had nothing to do with Bruce Wayne's death. And again, it's a character who I don't really recognize from the comic books, but maybe, there's going to be a big twist where the mask comes off and then it gets revealed that it's someone who we do know. If I had to guess, I would assume just, from the fact that this character wields a sword, that they're in some way, shape, or form related to the League of Assassins, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out for that. Here was another thing that kind of got me interested, is we got our first look at Stephanie Brown. Now, she was in the Batwoman TV show, but of course this isn't going to be connected to Batwoman. It's supposed to be in its own like separate continuity. So she is played by a different actress here, and it's of course a very different version of the character. But we do have our first look at Stephanie Brown, aka Robin number 4, I believe, aka Spoiler. Or that was like her name in the comic books. After she became Robin, she kind of took up her own mantle as Spoiler, and she took that because her dad was a supervillain, and her whole thing was that she would spoil a lot of his plans, and because he was also kind of like the Riddler, how he would leave like puzzles to his evil crimes and all that kind of stuff. She would kind of like spoil them for other people to solve that. So that's where she gets the name Spoiler. And yeah, I mean, it's cool that we're getting our first live action version of the character. I mean, technically, again, we had her in Batwoman, but assuming this is going to be the first time we get her like as a vigilante, I guess the big question that we kind of have with this is whether or not she's actually going to be taking up the mantle of Spoiler, or if she's just going to be kind of playing herself as Stephanie Brown the same way she did in the Batwoman TV series. But that's something we'll have to wait and find out. We then have another look. I don't know if it's the same guy from earlier or a different person who just happens to be an assassin with a sword. But again, giving me major League of Assassin kind of vibes. And again, I think it's meant to be like a red herring of who we're supposed to believe is the murderer Bruce Wayne. No idea what their identity is going to turn out to be. I wouldn't expect Ra's al Ghul or anyone like that. Possibly, since it's hard to tell whether or not, the gender of the character, it could, easily be like maybe Talia al Ghul from the comic books. But again, it's a little bit too early to really say, especially with all that armor that this character is wearing. And then we get like a look of Turner. Basically, the whole question I kind of had around his character is whether or not Bruce Wayne actually like taught him to fight, because it doesn't seem like his character knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman, which is of course like another mystery that I'm sure like a lot of fans have about the show, is whether like how involved is he with Bruce Wayne's like life as Batman. But we do see that he clearly does know how to defend himself, as we see him like blocking this sword that's about to attack them. And then we get like kind of our first, like, I don't know if you want to call it the money shot, but it's like that first like look of all of them together like as a team. Again, underwhelming to me, because again, it's a comic book show. And this is where I kind of give it the backhanded compliment, because I mentioned in the beginning of how I really like the look of Gotham. It looks very comic book accurate. But then it's kind of weird to see that kind of a look, but then not even bother giving your character's costume. It's like they kind of want to go somewhere in between, feeling like a comic book show, but also feeling grounded. And it kind of feels like you have this mess in between where they're trying to go somewhere in the middle, but it just, it doesn't work. It kind of gives me like, I guess you could say it gives me like Arrow season 4 type of vibes, where they want to introduce a little more comic booky elements, but they also want to pretend the show is still grounded, and it ends up not working too well. That's the kind of vibe I get from looking at this trailer. Like, it wants to have its cake and eat it too, but I don't think it's going to work. It doesn't look like it's going to work as well as maybe they wanted to. Now, of course, this is all early speculation. Maybe after the first episode premieres, I'll have a completely different opinion on this. But again, just, as a teaser, very, very underwhelming. Nothing really gets me too hyped for Gotham Knights, unfortunately. But I am curious to hear what you guys think of this. If you guys actually really like this teaser, if you guys are really looking forward to this, definitely let me know in the comments below. But let's move on now to Superman and Lois. Like, this is the one that I've actually really been looking forward to, because again, 2 really solid seasons so far, and then everything we've seen from the trailer for this upcoming season 3 of Superman Lois definitely has me hyped. Starting with this very beginning, seems to be Jonathan and Jordan's birthday, and I gotta say, like, kind of the way they seem to be celebrating it by looking at some family photos and videos, it almost feels like the celebration is more for Clark and Lois. Just I feel like this is going to be the type of thing where we'll cut to Jonathan and Jordan, like, kind of being slightly embarrassed, not like, oh, you ruined our birthday, mom and dad, not like that, but like definitely like kind of this is more of a gift for their parents and less of a gift for Jonathan and Jordan Kent, for sure. But it does look incredibly sweet, and I am really kind of curious if we're going to have any flashbacks of our new actor playing Jonathan Kent, especially because I could see like one thing that would be kind of funny is if they had any footage that would be a recreation of something that happened during the events of season 1 and 2, and it'd be kind of funny to see a new actor reenact those events that we saw the original Jonathan Kent kind of go through. Something like that would definitely be kind of funny if they go for that. But then we cut to the next scene where it turns out that Lois is actually pregnant, supposedly. Like, it's definitely not confirmed. It's definitely a maybe. And I'm sure we'll have a for sure answer, like, within the show itself. Happy news seemingly. But then this is where things in the trailer really hit the fan, as Lois has been taken, most likely from Intergang. We haven't really gotten any glimpses at Bruno Mannheim yet, but we do know that he's supposed to be the main villain of the season. And we do know that Intergang is going to be a huge part of it going forward. So, definitely, if I had to guess, I would assume that Lois, of course, is, doing her own journalist investigation. And this is probably what leads to her getting captured by Intergang. And we see that Sam Lane is not happy about it, blaming Clark for not saving her. But then, knowing Superman, you kind of got to take his word on this. But it seemed like he had to make a choice of whether or not to save Lois or to save like a bunch of other people whose lives were at stake. And Superman, you know, as much as he loves Lois, he's not going to put the life of one person above the lives of many, because that's just not the type of decision Superman would make, which you know, really upsets Sam Lane seemingly. But of course, knowing that, you know, Sam Lane he is the kind of person that will act on emotion a little more often than Superman. So I'm sure, like, in the heat of the moment, he'll be pissed off at him, but then, like, kind of towards the end of the episode, we'll kind of like understand why Superman made the decision that he did. And we then have this really cool shot, which at first in this teaser I thought was actually meant to be Superman, but then you know, when you look at the other teaser, you get this shot of Jordan Kent, so almost kind of like to imply that this might be Jordan Kent trying to you know, it looks like he's trying to prevent something from collapsing by using his heat vision, probably to melt it together. Really epic shot regardless, especially, you know, given again the CW budget. What they're able to do with the show with the budget that they have has always just been incredibly impressive to me. But it does seem like Superman isn't happy about it, as it nearly leads to Jordan's identity being exposed. So we'll definitely have to wait and see how that turns out. Because of course, you know, Jordan is claiming that he was very safe and that he knows what he's doing. But of course, when we watch the episode, we may, as an audience, have a very different opinion on that. But we'll definitely have to wait to find out on that. We then have this explosion. I couldn't quite tell where it was, but we have a similar shot that matches it here from the other teaser. Again, the teaser that was kind of mixed with Gotham Knights and Superman and Lois. And here, it kind of seems like this explosion might be happening outside the DOD. But again, it's really hard to say because it's hard to see the building too clearly. But if I had to like guess from just the explosion of where it is, just from the looks of the building and the fact that Superman and Steel are there, I'd say that probably the DOD would be the safest bet at where the explosion is, which, you know, wondering, you know, does this mean that Intergang has people within the military, and that's how this explosion might have happened? You know, Intergang might have connections that go deeper than you know, Superman and Steel can really handle, and that probably could be what involves Diggle later on. But we'll have to wait and see to find out about that. We then have our first look at Jonathan Kent's new actor, you know, and I'll give him this, like, mannerism wise, he does seem like the same Jonathan Kent, but of course he looks very different. But one other thing that I do kind of like about this new actor is he looks more like someone who could actually be related to Jordan Kent, whereas like the original actor for Jonathan Kent, as great of an actor as he was, and as much as he like owned that role that he was in, it was really hard for me. You know, I know they're fraternal twins, obviously, so of course they're not going to look exactly alike, but it's really hard for me to see the two of them as like being related, you know. But here it's a lot easier to, you know, imagine the two of them as brothers, because they do kind of look like the two of them do look like, to an extent, like they could be related to each other a lot, at least a lot more than the previous actor. We then also have our first shot, and this might be during the same scene as, like, in this shot, Jordan mentioned not being able to do this alone, and then, you know, the very next shot we have Natalie Irons there. So we also have kind of the question on whether or not Jonathan Kent is himself going to be suiting up at some point. Like, obviously he doesn't have any powers, but we had like kind of two hints that he might be kind of more of a tech guy going forward, like wearing kind of a suit of armor similar to you know, Steel and his daughter. So both, like, we could see like a combination perhaps of Kryptonian technology and just, you know, Earth technology to make him like a new super suit like going forward. But of course we don't see any of that in the teaser, as that's probably something they're going to be building up to towards like the end of the season, somewhere there. We then have some more glimpses at Metropolis, which gets me excited because it does seem like they're not going to be so restricted in Smallville anymore. Like, they could be going out in the city a lot more in Metropolis, so we could get some really cool, like, you know, Superman fights in the city, things like that. The stakes could be a lot bigger, in fact. The last shot I really want to talk about here is, of course, Lois seemingly being in danger from the collapse of the Daily Planet, which, really shows things hitting the fan. Now, two things kind of come to mind here. One of them, of course, being Kingdom Come Superman, where the Daily Planet was gassed by the Joker, killing everyone inside, including Lois Lane. Now, I would imagine that, of course, they wouldn't, if they were to do a similar storyline to Kingdom Come Superman, that they wouldn't actually use the Joker, obviously. But I could see them definitely kind of doing their own take on it, using Bruno Mannheim. But of course, this is like the first episode. We're looking at clips that are probably from the first episode, at least, of season 3 of Superman and Lois. And there's no way they would kill a title character, especially not in the first episode of the season. So I think it's safe to say that Lois is going to be perfectly fine by the end of this. However, this could be something completely different than what the trailer is leading it to look like. And that brings me to option number 2, which is this being a dream sequence or a vision. I say that also because, like, so the CG here, it's not that the CG looks bad, it's just that her being cropped into it, it's just not a very good convincing green screen, which Superman and Lois is usually a lot better at doing, at least when it comes to cropping people in front of a green screen. They're usually a lot better than a shot like this. So it kind of leads me to think that it's meant to not look too realistic, because it's meant to be like a vision or a dream sequence. And this could lead to like Superman's arc of maybe he becomes a little bit too overprotective of Lois Lane this season, something along those lines. But again, I would say that it's very safe to say that Lois isn't going to die here, that and if they were going to kill off Lois, it wouldn't be in the first episode of season 3, especially again with the show being called Superman and Lois. I feel like this is meant to just be a very misleading shot, but who knows? That's something we'll definitely have to wait and find out to know for sure. And I do believe, that wraps it up for both teasers. But overall, I do think that, again, going into Gotham Knights, not too much hype, but that might be a good thing, because I find that usually if I don't get my hopes up too much, I end up liking a show more than I normally would have if I had any sort of expectation. So I will probably give my thoughts on the first episode. If not like for an individual review, I'll definitely talk about it on A+ Hero Report, talk about my overall thoughts on Gotham Knights premiere once it happens. But of course, Superman and Lois, you will definitely hear my thoughts on it. Maybe not in individual episode reviews, but I will definitely give my overall season review of the show. And of course, during A+ Hero Report, if you guys want to know my thoughts on the show as it's going, definitely, leave me a comment, or, let me know in the live chat, if you want to hear my thoughts on Superman and Lois. I would definitely be happy to talk about them. Really looking forward to it. Again, Gotham Knights kind of mid, but I will, of course, give it a chance just to see how it does. But yeah, I kind of, not super hyped about it, but I will definitely give it that chance. But again, guys, those are just my thoughts on both of these shows. I definitely want to hear what you guys think about them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+. And hopefully I will have another video out for you guys tomorrow. It was supposed to be up today, but I am going to try to make a DCU predictions video where I predict what announcements we might be able to expect from James Gunn going forward about the new DC universe, and how I think it's really going to all pan out. I was going to do that earlier today, but I had some issues with my Adobe Premiere Pro. Essentially, I wasn't able to edit the video, and it was definitely a video that needed editing, unlike this, where I was able to just kind of like, talk through the video, not have to worry about any editing. In fact, this is why this ending might drag on a little bit longer than intended. But regardless, I am going to try to re-record it without the use of any editing. That way I could just do it as one straightforward video and then have that up tomorrow. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, that all being said, I will see you guys, if not tomorrow, then the next Superhero Report on Sunday. Keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later.